Hey soldiers, money flows to where it's treated best. We are seeing more and more Americans flee America.
Leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Leaving on a jet plane.
Just pick up stakes and leave because they are not being respected as tax-paying, productive citizens. So they're taking their productivity and their money elsewhere. One country in particular has, and this one will amaze you, it will surprise you. One country in particular has seen a record influx of American expatriates who are looking for better economic environments to migrate to, okay? So just as you've seen a lot of people migrate to the United States of America for better opportunity, there are a lot of Americans, more and more, migrating elsewhere for better opportunities. So we're going to get into what country that is, and I'm sure it may surprise you. But before we do that, let me say this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. With regard to me, okay, and my relationship with this country,
I'm not fucking leaving. This is my home. They're gonna need to send in the National Guard or fucking SWAT team, because I ain't going nowhere.
So I'm here. I'll turn the lights out. Okay, that's how I feel. And the reason I feel that way is because here's the flip side. There is also a lot of migration from high-tax states in America to states that have a much more favorable economy and a much more favorable taxation system. Now, if we look at this website, which I've referred to in the past, it's called How Money Walks. And we are seeing, well, we're seeing money walk away from some of these states like Minnesota. It's like pink. Okay. But we're seeing money run from California, getting the hell out of there, because not only does California have an onerous tax system, but it has a lot of regulation that people just, especially a small business, cannot affordably put up with. So they're saying, you know what? Hey, love it. The beaches are great. The weather's just perfect. I can always visit. And they are moving to better environments with regard to economics. We see the northeastern states blood red, okay, because they're bleeding productive taxpayers. These citizens are getting out of those states, going to places like Florida, where retirees are treated much better from a tax standpoint. Remember, the retiree has a fixed income. So they don't have a whole bunch of money to just fork over to the government. Think about this. Here in Baltimore City, okay, think about this. You can't get your snow shoveled off your street unless, in a timely fashion, unless you live on the same block as the mayor. Now, Baltimoreans, you know what I'm talking about. You have to send your kid, if your kid is in the public school system in Baltimore City, that's a risk. Are they going to get an effective education, or are they going to have to, worry about people coming in and literally taking out other students? This happened. This tragedy happened in one of the schools near the beginning of the school year this year. A kid was, murdered, unfortunately, by another kid. Okay. Do you want to sit in your office for 8 hours and have to worry about the safety of your child when they're supposed to be in the government school system and, them taking care of their safety? Of course not. And then get this. So you got crime as an issue. You got a failing school system. You got a lack of services. And then Baltimore City has the nerve to be the highest tax jurisdiction in the state of Maryland with regard to property taxes. So you're paying through the nose for your property taxes and getting nothing. That means the government of Baltimore City does not respect you as a tax-paying productive citizen. So there are other places that you can go right here in the United States of America. First of all, if you're in Baltimore, you could just make a move into one of the counties, one of the other counties in Maryland, and your situation would improve markedly in the 3 areas that I mentioned: crime, education, and services. Okay, so you don't even have to leave the state of Maryland if you just love Maryland. And many of the states have kind of that same thing going on. As you get into Massachusetts, New York, places like that, California, it gets draconian. All right, so you might have to just get the hell out of the whole state in those areas. So at the end of the day, you just want to hold on to more of your money. You worked hard for it. Okay, I don't care if you made your money by actually digging ditches, or if you did something with your intellectual capital. At the end of the day, the sweat of your brow and your intellectual capital made this happen. So is it unreasonable to want to keep more of that money? And then, again, let's take a look at Baltimore City. Now, they've got this new program where they're actually paying squeegee kids, or squeegee men. All right, I haven't seen a squeegee kid in a long time. They're grown men. They're paying squeegee men not to squeegee. Now, the whole squeegee thing, I don't live in Baltimore City. I was born and raised there, but I don't live in the city. But I always refer to it as my home. Okay, so that's what you're hearing. But the new state's attorney, the state's attorney-elect, gentleman by the name of Ivan Bates, he says that, look, this squeegee thing is not legal, okay? But yet and still, the mayor and the city council have agreed to pay these squeegee workers not to squeegee. Now, you know what's going to happen, okay? They're going to take the money from these idiots, which is taxpayer money, okay? Remember, you worked hard for it. You're paying the highest taxes in the state of Maryland, Baltimore City being the highest property tax district in the state of Maryland. You're paying that. And then they're forking it over to prevent the squeegee kids from endeavoring in an illegal activity. Okay? And at the end of the day, what most of these squeegee kids are going to do? They're going to do the squeegeeing anyway. Because if you fools in Baltimore City government are going to pay me not to do something, and then I know you don't have the apparatus to make sure I don't do it, so I can make some money there too, you can bet your bottom dollar that that's exactly what they're going to do. And you can't blame them for playing that arbitrage game. You have to blame the city for that. So there is Florida, Arizona, Texas. We've gone all through them. You can look at how money walks and take a look at it for yourself and actually drill down in order to find out what's the best place in America for you to maybe look at if you are nearing retirement, or if you own a business and you just want to maybe expand and get into a situation where, your money is treated better. Okay, and even if you just look at it just a little further afield, okay, Puerto Rico has some advantages where your economics are concerned, okay, especially if you're a business owner. And I take Puerto Rican weather over Californian weather any day of the week. Okay, Puerto Rico is a very nice place. I've been there a couple of times. Now, there's a organization. They're right here on YouTube. As a matter of fact, you can have an introduction to them. They've got a lot of good content out there. It's called Nomad Capitalist. And I've watched these videos for a long, long time. And even though I have no intention of leaving the country, even though I have no intention of that, might set up shop in Puerto Rico, though. It is a territory. These videos that this organization puts out are extremely enlightening, and they go into further explaining why you may want to consider this. And more people are doing just that.
But now we're seeing people in the West with fewer freedoms, fewer options, feeling less certain about their country's futures. And I want to tell you why it's so important to choose your citizenship rather than letting it choose you.
A lot of folk realize that, you know what? You don't have to be location dependent to do a job, because the remote work craze came into play. And it really, the technology's been there for a long, long time. It has just been that the events of 2020 were the paradigm shift that made companies have to switch over. Verizon is a company that developed this technology. They had very few people working from home, okay, before the pandemic, and now they got a whole lot more. And again, hey guys, you're a telecommunications company. You actually sell this type of capability to your clientele. What's wrong with allowing your workforce to work from home? Isn't it better for the environment? Verizon is one of these woke companies, right? It's better for the environment because your employees don't have to get into a car or get on a bus and actually come to a location. They can just wake up and walk from one bedroom down into the basement, maybe, right? It's better for their bottom line because presumably you don't need so much real estate. You don't need to be paying, a gas and electric bill or insurance if a sizable amount of your employees are working from home. So this technology and the work from home, I won't call it a craze because it's just a paradigm shift. It's here to stay for the most part. Although some employers are saying, well, we want you back in the office. You're more productive in the office. What it is they want to keep that overseer mentality where they can look over your shoulder. My philosophy is, hey, if you're productive and you're meeting your metrics, why can't you work from home? You're an adult, right? And I know somebody might bring up Twitter. Twitter is a basket case company. They weren't trying to make money. They were trying to, support an ideology. So leave them out of this. Elon's over there handling that situation, getting rid of a lot of the dead weight. Okay, so also during the pandemic, Americans flocked to states with low or no income taxes. This was according to a report that Yahoo Finance was taking a look at. People move to states with low income tax for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's the most direct and obvious reason that it reduces their own taxes, of course, reduces their own taxes and tax liability. That's according to Jared Walzak. He's a vice president of state projects with the Center for State Tax Policy at the Tax Foundation. He goes on to say, especially now that people have more capacity to move where they want, that will be a higher priority for some. So again, right here in America, you could say, I'm not bound to this particular office location. I can do my work from wherever in the world there's an internet connection. I'm out. Bye-bye, Baltimore City. I'm out. So we have an advantage there. Now, some Americans are taking it a step further, and they are relying heavily on companies like Nomad capitalists that we just mentioned. They're relying on companies like that to consult them with regard to moving out of the country altogether. And you will not believe what country has seen migrants move from America to this country in record numbers over the past few years. It's Mexico. So on the one hand, you got a lot of South Americans and Central Americans, they're heading north, and, a lot of Americans are waving at them as they pass by, going in the opposite direction. In fact, Americans are moving to Mexico at the highest pace since the statistics became available in 2010. Requests for temporary resident status has skyrocketed 85% above 2019 levels. Mexico granted 8,412 such permits over the first 3 quarters of this year, compared to 4,550 permits in the same period of 2019. So looks like it almost doubled. Over the same period, Mexican grants of permanent residency are up 48%, reaching 5,418. What started off as a pandemic escape, again, we're seeing people say, okay, we're not location dependent. Mexico's got internet service, I'm out. So it started off as a pandemic escape for Americans seeking affordable destinations with few rules around a certain illness. The restrictions, that environment seems to have staying power. It's important to note that this is not just retirees looking for a warm breeze and a low cost of living. The increase is also driven in part by the remote work trend, which the Mexican government has encouraged. Of course, Mexico is going to encourage it because they want more productive people coming into their country. Okay, they're smart. They want productivity in their country. Mexico makes it easy for Americans to work south of the border. A tourist visa lets you work there for up to 6 months, so long as you receive payment outside Mexico. Many Americans repeatedly extend the time frame by simply returning to the United States and then re-entering Mexico on a new visa, restarting the 180-day clock. Works for them, works for Mexico, everybody's happy. Given that framework, the temporary residence permits represent only a fraction of the actual number of Americans living indefinite stretches in Mexico. This is according to the U.S. State Department. They put the number at 1.6 million Americans have said Mexico's the place for me. Now, it's not all roses. Some of the people in Mexico, especially those that live in the neighborhoods and in the areas where Americans are moving into, are saying that they're in a situation where they're getting priced out of areas that they may have grown up in because Americans are bringing our money into that area and things are getting more expensive because they're, for example, real estate. They're renting apartments, but they're able to do so at rates that may be inflated for that area of Mexico, but are still very comfortable for an American. Case in point, one such American nomad was profiled in a recent CNN report on this trend. Eric Rodriguez, a 37-year-old economic development analyst for the U.S.-based agency who speaks little Spanish, this guy speaks little Spanish, moved to Mexico City to save money and enjoy the lifestyle. In so doing, he moved from a studio apartment in San Diego to a one-bedroom apartment in Mexico City. And get this, slashed his rent from $2,500 a month to $800 a month. And he's still doing the same job, getting paid the same, okay? But his expenses have just plummeted. Imagine how much money this gentleman is now able to invest, buying assets and maybe invest in building his own company. This is great, right? Well, Americans, I will say this. Some of them are going down there and not being the best neighbors, I should say. Some of the Mexicans are complaining about waves of Americans who make little effort to speak Spanish and expect employees at the restaurants and shops they patronize to speak English. Quote, "It's not as though there's an interest to participate and understand local culture here," one local told CNN. Come on, Americans. Don't do that. When in Rome, learn the language. Embrace the culture. You're in another land. Mexico has a vibrant culture. Get with it. All right? Despite the discontent, don't expect the Mexican government to start building its own wall anytime soon. Americans in Mexico generated $11.5 billion in revenue for the country in the first 5 months of the year alone. Meanwhile, the continued splintering of the American society will have many more gringos casting their wandering eye south of the border. All right, and just a little bit more on that tax issue. Some Americans, especially wealthy Americans, are looking to protect their wealth from the government and our IRS. You take a look at this chart, we see that that is pretty much the chief concern of Americans is who are leaving is that tax issue. So almost half of the people that are renouncing their U.S. citizenship cite taxation as the reason. All right, a couple of tweets from Nomad Capitalists. They are saying that lump sum tax programs allow you to pay a flat rate every year and then earn as much money as you like. Variations of this exist in Switzerland, Italy, Greece, Jersey, and Gibraltar. And I'm sure they ain't talking about New Jersey for sure. They go on to say hiring someone to create your offshore tax plan isn't expensive, is not expensive. Paying 40% of your income compounded for the rest of your life is expensive. No bullshit. Okay, that's absolutely correct. Basically you're a slave 40% of the time. Because again, it's not like the government is doing something productive with your money. In terms of the United States government, they're sending it to Ukraine. And in terms of the local governments, we just talked about how Baltimore City is funding the squeegee men and telling them if you don't do crime, then we will pay you. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? All right, that's the hilarity. That's the insanity that is going on today in America with regard to taxation. And let's take a look at our old friend, the ever-present national debt clock. Look at how it's just running up, okay, nonstop. Those dollars just stack up. Seconds go by and we spend, millions of dollars. It's just insane. So if you're somewhere where your money's not being respected, somewhere where they're just, taking it from you and, doing what the hell they want and telling you, you're going to keep paying or else. So now, you have more than one option. Take a look at this video. Yes, there is a diesel shortage in America. I'm looking at a lot of headlines that says that that's not true. It is indeed true, and we prove it. And we also show you how that diesel shortage and these high diesel prices, they're going to make everything else expensive also. We show you how those prices might be here forever. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.